Forget everything you think you know about Ford's boss engines. The 351 Cleveland wasn't just an engine, it was a sleeper cell, a factory-bred assassin that went from the assembly line to absolutely obliterating the competition in NASCAR and the NHRA. But here's the kicker, nobody sees it coming. Today we're unearthing the full story, from its blue-collar origins to the twisted, full-throttle sabotage that tried to bury it. We're talking engineers who worked in the shadows, racers who exploited loopholes, and the untold sacrifices that made this underdog a legend. Because to understand how it dominated, you've got to know the blood, sweat, and betrayal that went into it. Stay with us. This isn't just history, it's a reckoning. By the middle 1960s, the muscle car wars were in full swing. Ford was being left behind, and they knew it. With each brand trying to outdo each other on the street, the big blocks reigned supreme of the day. The only problem with this was, with the big blocks ruling the streets, insurance companies took notice of this and began to put surcharges on those particular engines. By the late 60s, Chevrolet and Mopar had developed mid-size engines to help get underneath this insurance surcharge. With Chevrolet having a 350 cubic inch engine and Mopar having a 340 cubic inch engine, this made these cars serious performers in the right chassis. That left Ford in the cold. The Windsor was pretty much a stopgap engine that was developed to fill a void. Even though this engine was rated at 290 horsepower, it was lacking in the performance department, which led Ford engineers to come up with the new 351. This one was going to be a powerhouse. The Cleveland was the engine for the 70s. Ford decided to spend over $100 million investing in this new engine. Ford referred to this engine as the 335 series, and as you can tell, it looks completely different from its Windsor brother. Sharing few similarities like bore centers of 4.38 inches, the cam is actually raised in the Cleveland block, and it has wider oil pan rails, which allows for more stroke. The 1971 Boss engine would come equipped with 4 bolt mains, where the standard Cleveland has 2 bolt. The biggest difference being in the cylinder head design itself. The 4V Cleveland had massive intake valves canned, which made for big power. It even was offered in a 2V version, which had smaller valves and still made 250 horsepower. The ironic part is, even though in the 4V configuration, it was rated from Ford at 300 horsepower, only 10 horsepower more than the Windsor brother, but the performance on the track was completely different. By 1971, the Mustang had grew to huge proportions. Even though the muscle car era was coming to an end, no one apparently told Ford about this, as they started out to create the Boss 351. This would be the final chapter in the Boss series. Ford unveiled the Boss 351, a high-performance version that pushed the limits of small-block V8 capabilities. Designed specifically for road racing, the Boss 351 came equipped with high-flow canted valve 4V heads, a solid lifter camshaft with an aggressive profile, an aluminum intake manifold, and an Autolite 4300D 4-barrel carburetor. With a formidable 11.0 to 1 compression ratio and forged internals, the engine was rated at an impressive 330 horsepower at 5,400 RPM. It also produced 370 pound-feet of torque at 4,000 RPM. Though many believe real-world figures were even higher, to ensure it could sustain high RPMs, Ford also included a 6-quart oil pan and cast aluminum valve covers. The Boss 351 was built for serious performance, and it made a lasting impact during its brief production run. Ford also released the 351 Cobra Jet between 1971 and 1974, targeting high-performance street applications. Unlike the Boss 351, the Cobra Jet featured a more street-friendly hydraulic lifter camshaft and a Holley 750 CFM carburetor instead of the Autolite unit. It used open-chamber 4V heads to meet emissions regulations, with compression ratios ranging from 8.5 to 1 to 9.0 to 1, depending on the year. Initially rated at 280 horsepower, its power output was gradually reduced to comply with new regulations. While often mistaken for a Super Cobra Jet, Ford never officially produced such a version for the 351 Cleveland. Additionally, some later Q-code 351C engines, 1972 and beyond, were marketed with Cobra Jet badging, further adding to the confusion. Ford used Cobra Jet loosely in the 1970s, leading enthusiasts to slap the term on non-CJ engines. Hot rodders often mix Cleveland heads with Windsor blocks, creating clever engines, or add CJ-style parts, muddying the waters. The Cobra Jet name carries weight, so it's often misapplied to any hopped-up 351. Next time someone claims they've got a 3 Cobra Jet boss, smile and ask, is it a Cleveland, a Windsor, or a parts bin special? It didn't take the NASCAR boys long to figure out that this was the engine to run. With the big blocks being gone in '74, guys like Bud Moore and the Wood brothers were going to show what this engine could actually do. Here you can see a really young Darrell Waltrip in his rookie year. Let's take a look back at the Wood brothers and show how awesome this engine is.
It is still David Pearson leading Richard Petty, and they're in the final 2 laps of the race. All right, coming down out of turn number 4, coming down past the start-finish line. Petty may run him into the fence, and it's going to be Pearson winning it. An incredible, daring move, and it paid off for David Pearson. Official finishing order. David Pearson first, Richard Petty second, Buddy Baker, Cale Yarborough dead heat the third, Bobby Allison fifth.
Well, you're a crotchety old grandpa, David. I'll tell you, that finish was something else. Well, Chris, I knew that if I let him stay behind me, that he would draft me and beat me, so I just backed off right there at the last the white flag and let him go on by, then I got him back, coming off 4.
Richard, what a finish. What exactly happened?
Well, we got to the start-finish line in the last lap, and he let off on it and let me get about 300 yards ahead, and he had enough horsepower that even going down the backstretch, he had to sort of feather out of it to keep the passing me going in the corner over there so that he could make a spectacular coming off the corner, and that's just how simple it is.
This dominance continued into the 1980s with Bill Elliott and his brother Ernie, using derivatives of the Cleveland. He just showed how dominant this combination is at the 1985 Winston 500 at Talladega. Let's take a look.
And quite frankly, it was probably the biggest waxing that we have ever seen in this sport, period, bar none. That race, 1985, Bill Elliott wins Talladega.
By the late 1980s, Cleveland NASCAR blocks were getting scarce. Ford, recognizing this, decided to develop the SVOR block, which was Windsor-based, but put the Cleveland attributes into it by using smaller main journals. NASCAR, trying to get a handle on this cylinder head situation, enlisted none other than Robert Yates to come up with the C3 head. This was to standardize all of the Ford teams so that they would be running the same unit. While the head evolved through the C3 to the D3, this engine would in fact remain in place until it was finally retired by the FR9. Let's take a look at some drag racing history from here on out. The year was 1971. The NHRA Pro Stock rules were going to be changing for the 72 season, allowing smaller cubic inch engines. This left Ford drag racers in a scramble trying to develop the 351 into a drag racing engine. With Bill Jenkins debuting his 1972 Vega with a small block at the Winter Nationals, it was catch-up for the Ford teams as Jenkins ran away with the entire season. By the end of the 72 season, things were starting to look up for the Ford teams with Ken Dondero driving Dono Don Nicholson's Pinto. He took the runner-up position at the World Finals. The Ford racers found additional power over the winter of that year with the development of the high port plates by Gap and Roush and Bud Moore Engineering. This gave the Ford drag racers a distinct advantage as it put them in the winner's circle. Sam Auxier Jr. told me in conversation that he had never seen an engine respond to modifications like the 351 Cleveland. Initially, they start out with small 660 center squirter carburetors. They found out that they love Dominators, and he also found out that they cannot get enough camshaft. This took the Cleveland to a new level of horsepower. The 73 season started off with Dono Don winning the Winter Nationals and the Gator Nationals. The U.S. Nationals was won by the upcoming Bob Glidden, and then the year was finished off with Gap and Roush taking 2 wins at the end of the season. Things had changed for Ford, so let's check it out.
Now let's move to Pro Stock and round 1. First matchup, Bob Glidden of Greenwood, Indiana in the 73 Pinto against Wayne Gap of Birmingham, Michigan. He'll be in the left lane in the 73 Pinto.
Elapsed times in the high 8s and low 9s,
and
over 150.
An extremely close race, Bob Glidden.
And now for the Pro Stock final. Richie Zuhl's Camaro, Wayne Gap's four-door Maverick, going for top honors in this category. It's close. Gap's sixth major triumph.
Your fifth Pro Stock world title in a row, and you know what? You just became the winningest drag racer in history.
That's wonderful. I'm so happy. I feel really bad for the boys from Texas. They've done such a great job, but Ed and ourselves and the kids will be so happy. It's such a great win for us, Steve. I just can't even tell you.
And also rather wealthy, about a $40,000 day for the Gliddens.
I'll tell you, it's more than the money right now.
The world champion once again, and here he drives his machine back to receive the accolades of the crowd on his way back to the starting line. Congratulations to our funny car champion, Ron Colson, and of course to the new world champion in Pro Stock, Bob Glidden. I'm Paul Page. For Steve Evans, so long.
They rewrote the rule book, then the rule book got rewritten to stop them, and still, they won. So was the 351 Cleveland Ford's ultimate boss. The fact that they had to ban it to kill it tells you everything. Hit that like button if you know the Cleveland deserved more. Subscribe because this isn't the end. We've still got buried blueprints to uncover. Ford's last laugh? It's still coming.